All right. Well, take it away, Brandy. Brandy is here tonight to visit about what Lincoln Southwest is doing in regards to unified journalism, unified yearbook. So
Yes.
take it away.
Okay, so a little bit of backstory. So I have been our unified coach at Southwest since unified was implemented, I believe in 2016. I think this is our 8th year of having it. And I started with unified bowling, and the way that I got started with unified bowling is my dogs are barking. Like a lot of other students who came from small towns, we didn't really have like a separate special education department. And so growing up, everybody was with everybody all the time. We had students get pulled out who needed to do like OT or PT or speech therapy, but we didn't have a separate classroom for students. And so we learned to work together um, all of the time. And once I got to Southwest and was a high school teacher, my classroom was right across from our life skills room. And so I worked with our special education coordinator to see if there were any students who could take my elective courses. So I did like photojournalism and journalism. And rather than have a paraeducator with those students, it was easier to find a student to help a student because peers work better with their peers. And so I got asked to do unified bowling. It was a no-brainer because again, I'd been kind of doing something similar in my classroom. And then we were about to implement unified track in 2020 and COVID hit and everything got shut down. And I was just telling you guys right before we started recording, when we came back from 2020, we had unified PE that had been implemented in the district by the amazing Lynn Strack and Liz Brendan. We had already had a friendship club at our school that our life skills teachers, Amy Jewell and Patty Brown, had started. And so we had a couple of little pockets of things. And when we came back, we decided, well, if we're going to call it unified bowling, we're going to call it unified track. Now we have unified PE, let's call it unified club instead of friendship club. And so in 2021, we were approached by a group of students who said, well, why can't we have a unified council? Like a student council. And we said, well, if you want a unified council, let's go with it. So we started unified council. And then recently in the last couple of years, we have implemented unified walking club, unified book club, unified choir, unified swim, unified cheer, unified yearbook, unified family nights. And this year we're piloting unified mass media, which is basically our unified newspaper. And so the way that we got started with unified yearbook is it'll be 3 years ago now. Because we are a block schedule, we only offer 4 blocks a day at Southwest, and our choir schedule is what we call a skinny. So it's a 45-minute block instead of a 90-minute block. And so our students go to unified choir for 45 minutes of the day. And then there was kind of this gap of, well, where could some of these students go for the other 45 minutes? And so we suggested, well, why don't they come in to traditional yearbook? My yearbook class is typically pretty small, so we had availability. And so we piloted our first year with 3 students from special education and 4 students from general education. And like I said, my traditional students are in traditional yearbook for the entire block. And then my unified students are in unified/traditional yearbook for the other 45 minutes of the block. And so the first year that we did it, our unified students produced a 40-page yearbook, and that was kind of independent of our traditional yearbook. And so about a quarter in or a couple of months in, the editors of the yearbook at the time asked if they could stay after school and talk to me, which always makes my like heart jump into my chest, as I'm sure any advisor does. And the students had said, you know, we appreciate that we're combining and we have traditional and unified yearbook together. And we appreciate that they're making this unified yearbook and we're making a traditional yearbook, but is it really unified if the two of them aren't together? And it was just like a, you know, a proud mom moment, because that's exactly what unified is for, is helping students see the ways that we can incorporate everybody. And so our yearbook is chronological. So everything goes in order of how it happens in the school year. And so we implemented the unified yearbook directly in the middle of the book in December, because Unified Yearbook only goes for half of the school year. And so we have traditional pages, the Unified Yearbook, and then the rest of the book after that. And we had great success with doing that. And then we did it again last year. And then my editor this year said, well, it still feels like it's kind of disjointed. So what if we put the pages within the book? And so that's our goal for this year is we'll have the unified pages within the book. And so we have a traditional yearbook, and then we still print a unified yearbook. And the reason that we still print the unified one is because the first pages of the unified book that my unified staff members make are about me pages. And so it talks about who they are, like what their favorite things are, their families, their friends, their pets, and all of that kind of stuff. And we don't include that in the traditional book because our school's so big, and I just don't think that that's relevant information that should be in there. So we take those pages out for the traditional one, we keep them in the unified one, and then we print a 40-page individual unified yearbook for the students that are in unified yearbook.
Awesome. Yeah, that's fantastic. And I love the progression of it, how every year changed. And yeah, and I bet that was proud mom moment, proud, your kids reaching out to say like this is unified, but it's
Is it?
not
Yeah.
as much as we want it to be, or whatever. So that's very cool. Um, so how do so within your unified, the section of unified that you have, do your gen ed students help your unified students? Yeah, do they
So
like have a partner or a mentor?
yeah, so everything we do operates off of the same premise that unified sports do. So like in unified bowling, you have a bowler and you have an athlete. In
Yep.
unified track, you have a track, so we call them a trackster and a partner. In choir, we call them singers and volunteers or partners. And then in yearbook or now mass media, we call them journalists and assistants. And so my students from special education are our journalists, and then our students from general education are their assistants. And everybody's partnered up with somebody, which, I had the opportunity in the spring to speak at JEA and present on Unified Yearbook. And the cool thing when I was putting the presentation together is everything we do in Unified is what we already do in traditional yearbook, right? So you have kids who are coming back who are your veteran staff. You have brand new students who are your newbies. Typically, you partner them together because one knows more about the subject than the other one. And so they're working together, and it's no different in Unified. So you're working with a partner, which is what we already do in yearbook for our first pages to make sure that we do them correctly. And so we have students partner together. And then basically what we do is we just have our assistants get to know their partners and understand where they might need help and assistance, right? So if I'm a student who's not a strong typer, but I can say the things that I want to write, then that's what my assistant is for. They're there to type the things that I'm saying to them. We had another first the other day, which was really cool. We had our first unified photographer at a varsity football game. And he had his partner there, and her job was, even though he's fully able to push his own wheelchair, it's a little more difficult with a camera. So her job was just to push him to where he wanted to take pictures. And so again, just the partnership is more of a, I'm not going to do these things for you, but if there's something that you have a difficult time with, I'm going to help you. I'm going to help assist in that. I just had students who went out and did interviews the other day because again, we're working on those social skills and we're working on building confidence and a lot of the IEP goals that we have for some of these students. And so communication is really important. And so the assistants know when they go out with their journalist, you're going to record the interview and you're probably going to knock on the classroom. But when that student comes out, I want the journalist introducing themselves and I want them to be asking the questions. If a question doesn't come out the way that it should and they need a little bit of an explanation or a follow-up, that's what you're there for. But I really want the journalists doing the same thing that their partners would be doing if their partners had signed up for traditional yearbook as well.
Awesome. And then how do you think that you'll implement it? Like how does the mass media,
Yes.
how does that look in comparison with your, like your yearbook class?
Yep. So it's similar. So we're piloting it and we've only got 4 students. We wanted to start small and it takes place during first block. And so the reason that we were kind of testing it out is because Southwest wants to implement unified culinary in the next year or two, or maybe a unified theater class. Again, it's really hard because we have block scheduling.
Sure.
But it's nice to be able to split those blocks up into, like I said, those skinnies. So it's not 90 full minutes, it's just 45. And so right now I have two students who are my journalists, two students who are my assistants. And basically what happens is my assistants show up for the entire 90-minute block, and they spend the first 45 minutes kind of prepping notes and figuring out the things that they want to accomplish with their partner. And then they go down to our life skills room halfway through the block and bring back our journalists. And we just had one pair post their first news story to our website. So that's another first to check off for Lincoln Southwest, the first unified article that's been posted on the LSW Hawk. And our other students were the ones that went and took the pictures, and their story should be done here before long. I think the biggest thing that I love about Unified is that we live in such a fast-paced society. It forces us to slow down and recognize that things don't have to be the same for everybody, and they don't have to go quickly. And so these students have been working on their news stories since school started, the second week of August. And so again, it took a little more time, right? Typically our turnaround time is 48 hours. But I told them, like, do not listen to me when I'm talking to traditional mass media. Like, you know your tasks, and I want your journalists doing these things. I don't want you editing things for them. I want you to help them edit them. I don't want you taking the pictures for the showcase. I want them taking the pictures. So it's going to take grace and it's going to take patience, but you're going to work collectively to accomplish the same things essentially.
Awesome. Anyone have any questions? Thoughts? Yeah.
I would
Mark?
like you to go on the record and tell how supportive Walsworth has been, your
Oh my
yearbook.
God.
Oh,
Yes.
Because I think that's really important for people
Yes.
to understand that the company is applauding you and celebrating this effort and the students. So will you talk about that?
Absolutely. So we got featured on a blog post in the spring, which was really cool. My students' pictures got posted, and since they were really excited to be on the internet. So that was kind of cool. But when this all began, like I said, 3 years ago, Greg Adams, who is about to retire from Walsworth and has been my rep for years and years, and is a very dear friend of mine, I contacted him and Michelle Brosmer, who also works at Walsworth, and said, I got an idea. And anytime I do that, they typically don't like that. And it's frowned upon because my ideas take a lot more than is necessary sometimes. And when I presented this one, they didn't hesitate at all to jump on it. Greg was like, I don't care. What I will cover the cost for it this first year and help get this thing off the ground, because I think this is 100% worth it. And so he helped me that first year. We printed a small number of the books, but it was enough to get the word out and to be able to send them out to different people and for families to have them. And then I was, like I said, very lucky to get to speak at the convention in the spring. And Greg was there as well when our Unified Yearbook won the Pacemaker Award, which was really, really cool. And then there were also just wonderful supports from Walsworth. We went to like a Walsworth get together, like advisor thing. And I got to talk about Unified, and some of the Walsworth people that were there were, telling people about it. And it's just been a really, really cool thing to see. And I think it's a good reminder that you can still be involved even if you're not directly involved in something, right? And so, like I said, Greg came in, I tell him this crazy idea. Michelle was like, absolutely, let's do it. So the difficult thing that makes it even worse, and again, hats off to Walsworth for this. So we have our Walsworth account for traditional, and then we have a secondary account for yearbook, but you can't share anything between them because they're technically two different like accounts. And so there are wonderful people at Walsworth who have helped us make sure that we can move certain spreads over to this side and then other spreads over back to this side to make sure that we can print everything. And yeah, they've been awesome. They could have easily said like, yeah, we're not doing this. This isn't something that our company does. And they saw the vision and they believed in it, and have just run with it too. So I'm very grateful for them.
Yeah, they're great. Well, that's who I worked with when I was at Norfolk, not Greg, but Michelle. Greg was there, I think, at the very beginning, and then I think he focused in a different area or something like that. But yeah, that's awesome. The support, fantastic. Any other questions or comments?
Do you find that quite a few of the like traditional student kids get on board with this right away?
Oh, 100%. Yes, 100%. So, what's been really cool this year that we haven't had the past 2 years is that we have 2 students who use wheelchairs. And so it's been interesting to watch traditional students look at the clock and just automatically know that they need to move the chairs out of the way. And they need to push their backpacks in to make sure that people can get in the classroom. Which again, might not seem like a huge thing, but what we want from Unified is for kids to just be aware, right? We want them to be aware of different people and different circumstances. And the thing with education is we have all these students who start out at the same level when they're in elementary school, right? Because everybody's learning the same things. Everybody begins at square one. And then as they get older, they start to separate. And so all of these kids have already worked with their peers before. I think they just forgot that they worked with their peers. And so providing them with a space again to just be kids and just get to do the things that everyone else does, it's a very simple and easy transition for them. And then the same thing, like when students are leaving, because some of our students catch the bus, so they have to leave 15 minutes early every day. Everybody says goodbye. Everybody, see you tomorrow. One of our Unified Yearbook students overheard me talking about how we do crochet club on Mondays after school. And he's like, well, I want to be in crochet club. So now he doesn't ride the bus on Mondays. He hangs out for crochet club after school. And my big thing with Unified that I tell everybody is, we don't have a ton of kids that are doing Unified Mass Media. We don't have a ton of kids that are doing yearbook, but we do have a couple. And if we've created something that makes one more student feel like everyone else around them and feel like their peers, then I would spend all day creating 1,000 things. Like I said, like with Crochet Club, like we have one student who now has a club when they didn't have a club before. And so I think that has been really cool. And then the one thing that, like I said, I get to co-coach with Liz Brendan, who's a queen when it comes to modifying and adapting things in the unified world. We got to do a podcast or a radio show a couple of years ago, and we both got asked, like, what has been the most rewarding thing that you have seen come out of Unified? And we both didn't hesitate at all to say graduations and coffee dates and movie nights and stuff. Because I think that parents and students in general education forget the privilege that they have of getting invited to go to things all of the time and getting to drive themselves to those things, or having their parents drop them off. And it has been beyond amazing to show up at a graduation party at the end of the year and Unified rolls in deep. Like you show up and all of us are there. And so that's been really fun to see everybody show up, not only like a traditional or a general education graduation party, but also at a special education graduation party. There was one student we had a couple of years ago whose mom rented out a karaoke machine. And I rolled up and it was just Unified kids galore, just jamming to every possible karaoke song. I'm surprised the neighbors didn't call and complain because it was so late at night. Or I love getting pictures of students after they've graduated and they say, we went out and had a coffee date, or we invited such and such to our dorm for card night. And again, like I said, just making students aware of the ways that they can be kind and include other people, because I think we're lacking that a lot in the world. And so just helping them recognize and be aware of the ways that they can include more people is ultimately the goal that we have.
Definitely. It's awesome. The entire everything is fantastic. And
I'm trying to think of, I'm trying to think of other things to say about Unified stuff. I think like, one of the things that I was saying to when I gave my presentation, there was a lady there who had said, my yearbook staff, they already make like a smaller yearbook for our life skills students at our school at the end of the year. And this presentation just made me realize, like, why don't we invite those students to come and make this book that we're giving them? And I think like the biggest thing, if somebody's like, well, yeah, it seems like that's a great thing for them, but like I'm at this school and I have 10 preps and I have all these other things, blah, 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 is that it doesn't have to be big, right? Again, it's like that starfish story that I'm sure everyone's heard about, the guy who's like throwing starfish, back into the ocean. And the guy says, why, you can't possibly get all of these. Like, what does it matter? And he's like, but it matters to this one. Right. And I always think about that. Like, there's got to be a student at your school, who would be good at being a journalist. And there has to be a student on the other side of that that would be good at being an assistant, even if it's just one, even if it's 1 day a week, even if it's 1 day a week after school as a club type of a thing, even if it's as a freelance photographer pair that does it, even if it's only 1 quarter, the amount of payback, like your school and your programs and just the culture in your building will get, is immeasurable. I feel very, very blessed and very fortunate to be at Southwest, because we have a staff and a student body who has just really rallied behind us and embraced this idea of unified. Like I said, we have 13 unified activities right now. And I mean, I would hope we would get more, but some of them are during the day. Our book club is from 10 to 11, the second Wednesdays of the month. Our unified club is the third Thursday at 2:15. We have family night the last Tuesday of every term, where we watch a movie and invite families to come to it. Like I said, our unified council works really well too. They incorporate our unified week at school, and get that going. And we're allotted time to be able to talk about differences and talk about joining unified and stuff like that. And like I said, it's just been so awesome to see, again, how you don't have to be directly involved, right? You can support the idea of, when a student comes to your room and wants to interview, and they're from Unified, allowing a student to go out and do that interview. And so I would just encourage anybody who's doubting it or thinking it's difficult, give it a shot. And if it's messy and it's a disaster, that's fine too. We look like we've had this amazing program that's really well put together. And I would say probably 3 out of the 5 days of the week, we're a cluster and we're trying to figure out where we are with those pages. And that's okay, right? Because they're going to get done. And more importantly, those students feel involved, they feel welcome, and they feel like they matter. And if we get that over producing a page at the end of the day, I'm A-okay with that.
Yeah, that's a good question. So like deadlines, what do you do to adhere? Because I assume they're just doing it as a pass fail, right?
Yeah, you're exactly right. So that's exactly what I do. And then I do the same thing with our assistants as well. I tell them, like, your grade is whether or not you're working with your partner. Which again, they want to be in there, right? It's not like it's random kids who get assigned. And so we work really hard with all of our unified stuff that we have at Southwest, to be very specific and meticulous about who we're partnering together, so we can try and make sure that like-minded individuals are put together, or students who might need to do this a little bit to make both of them stronger. We'll do that sometimes too. But with all of our journalism stuff, we have hand selected both our athletes and our journalists and our assistants, to ensure that they're going to be okay together. And I'm a big proponent in teaching in general, not with Unified, but with all of it, of learning by struggling and learning by doing. And so it's okay if at the end of the day, like I said, all we did today was wrote down a list of people that we're going to interview. Well, then by golly, tomorrow we're going to go interview them. So, and if by tomorrow we only interview 2 of them, well, then we'll interview the next ones the next day. And again, like I said, I think Unified, the blessing of Unified is it just makes you realize, like, slow down and appreciate what's happening in front of you. And we'll get to the end result when we get there.
I love it.
It's so fun. So now we need to get Unified journalism at State.
Totally. I would love to see it. Yeah. And that's just like, our office is totally on board with unified across everything. So it's not just the sports that can do it, and we've implemented it in speech. We've been looking at it in play production. So currently we don't have like a qualification. It's more of an application, and then they attend. With speech, we have like a showcase where you can pretty much present anything, but then also a competition with duet acting. So like Unified Kid, their partner, meeting together and performing a duet. But there's zero reason why it can't happen in NSAA journalism,
It's
in my
just so
opinion.
fun. You know, one of my favorite quotes is, you're living your passion when you see your passion living out in others. And if there's anything that I've learned, and this is just again in teaching high school in general, give kids the opportunity to do something they care about, and they're going to make it happen. There are so many things that we have, and you guys would all agree with this in your yearbook classes as well. We have wonderful students, and they're good at what they do. And if we just back up and stay out of their way sometimes, and let them be great, they're able to shine. And that's what I love about Unified too, is we have just a group of students who have said, but we want there to be more things. And they just keep adding them on, and I love it.
Yeah, with unified journalism, like on our level, I feel like there's two ways to go about it, and we kind of do both for speech. So like the exhibition where anybody just comes and does a speech. Literally, you can do a speech that in a category that doesn't exist. Just if you want to read your American Legion essay, you could. With those ones, everyone gets a gold medal in that event, and this is what the Special Olympics of Nebraska folks like. In the duet acting, they are ranked. So I think that there's two avenues to explore, going down with unified journalism, but I don't see why either of them would be out of bounds. I mean, the placings don't impact the overall team points, at least at this point, but are just there as kind of I don't know, like I think of speech teams as, having students, special education students on these teams already, for the most part, but then, never having the opportunity to maybe make the district team or make that next level. So I don't know. I feel like it's worthwhile to explore
And
what
I
we
think
could
it's
do with
just, I
journalism.
think it's one of those things too, so like we have unified bowling and unified track. Okay. And I'm sure there are different ways that different people do things, and that's completely fine. But
Sure.
like at our school, if you're on the team, you letter.
Yeah.
We don't, there's the criteria is you're a good human being, you help each other, you're positive, and you embrace the idea of, um, servant leadership and helping each other and rising by lifting others. And like you were just saying with like rankings and stuff like that, like at the end of the day, what do we want from them? We want them to be kind, and we want them to be inclusive. And so what does it matter, right? If you add another category or all of these different things, like we're not doing like a participation ribbon for everybody. But if you put in the time and you worked hard, you deserve to be recognized for what you did. So, I would love to see unified yearbook at state. I know Erica Brockmuller in Lexington does a unified broadcast every year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and her kids do an awesome job with that. And so, they could submit something for that too. We have a segment that we do at Southwest called Hit the Halls, where kids go out and ask questions. And I sent my unified newspaper kids out. I don't even know what question they asked. I haven't seen the video footage yet. But it was kind of cool because they went out and took it. And then I asked one of our traditional mass media students, I said, when they come back with this footage, would you be interested in making it into a video? He was like, oh, that would take me no time at all. Yeah, I can do that really fast. Right. And so again, there's just that crossover that comes with helping each other. And that's what we're here for, is to help each other out. So.
Absolutely. Anything else? Okay, I'm going to stop our recording quick.
So I should have said this before you stopped, but we're proud of you, Brandy. We're grateful for you, Brandy, for leading the charge, leading the way, and reminding us to be kind human beings. So that's all. You're amazing.
Thank you.